Hello, my name is Chuck Wolf. Over the years, I've worked in many different roles, including leading my own leadership consulting company since 1994. I've worked for and with some of the best companies and universities in the world, and have had the opportunity to work with government officials, military organizations, and public and private schools. I'm a leading expert and pioneer in emotional intelligence. Since 2009, I've been a volunteer hosting a radio show I created called The Emotion Roadmap: Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel. I really enjoy making a difference in people's lives. The show is on award-winning community radio station, WPKN in Bridgeport, Connecticut. In recent years, Simsbury Community Television has been sharing my shows on their station and on YouTube. My sincere hope is that everyone who watches regularly will learn how to use the Emotion Roadmap in their own lives by listening to people who call in to get help with challenges at work, home, and in communities. To learn more, go to www.emotionroadmap.com. If you have a comment or question, email me at cjwolf@cjwolf.com. Thank you and enjoy the show. And this is Chuck Wolf. You're listening to the Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel on WPKN 89.5, listener-supported radio. And I want to thank everybody who is a regular listener for tuning in. I'm very thankful for all of those of you who find the show really meaningful in your lives, that it's made a difference for you. And I hope that you're learning how to use the Emotion Roadmap. In a few moments, I'm hoping that I'm able to take a phone call from someone that I have a tremendous amount of respect for, the person who is now the director for the Consortium for Research on Emotional Intelligence in Organizations, and that's Rob Emmerling. The phones in the studio, unfortunately, there's some problems with the studio and the phones aren't working, so I can't take regular callers today. But I have asked Rob to call in on my cell, and if it works out, then we'll have him speak to you a little bit about an upcoming meeting that, for the first time, this consortium is opening itself up to the public. Now, there's a price for that, but it's a relatively inexpensive price as conferences go. It's at Rutgers University in New Jersey this time. It's often in Boston, and sometimes it's in other places around the globe, because it is a worldwide, I like to say, think tank for people in the field of emotional intelligence, those who are researchers and those who are practitioners. Mostly it's research-based. There are some companies that choose to sponsor their membership in the consortium, and that provides them with firsthand knowledge and insights into the field of emotional intelligence, how it's growing and expanding, and what people are doing that is really cutting edge. And I'll be talking a little bit about some of the work that I'm doing as we go through the day today for my time. If Rob is unable to call, I will just basically use the 55 minutes that I have today to talk to you about possibilities, how the Emotion Roadmap is evolving and the way emotional intelligence is growing, and how I'm using this concept of emotional intelligence and the technique and process that I've developed called the Emotion Roadmap to guide people, to guide teams, and to guide organizations. And I want to share with you just a number of different possibilities of ways you can think about as you're learning about the Emotion Roadmap, listening to the show. And by the way, the show's on the first and second Wednesdays of each month at 12 noon to 1 o'clock. It actually ends at 12:55 as we have public broadcast announcements that we like to make and share information about what's happening in our community, underwriting announcements for groups that are kind enough to support the station, and also, again, things that are hopefully useful to the members of our community. I want to thank especially those of you that are ongoing donors, regularly contributing, whether it's a monthly contribution or just an annual contribution or quarterly contribution. It's appreciated. So I want to talk a little bit about what the show is going to be about today and give you a kind of an outline. I want to talk about the emotional intelligence article that I just created and sent out to several people, and I'm hoping to get published soon, about engagement is a feeling. Those of you that are in business, especially larger size companies, have probably heard of the group called Gallup. The Gallup organization is known for measuring levels of engagement of workforces across the world. They're really quite a large organization and has established a niche in the workplace as an excellent group for understanding how much the people in your workplace are engaged. And they basically describe engagement in three ways. They talk about it in terms of the amount of highly engaged people that are doing everything they possibly can to support your organization and your workplace. People that love coming to work, love their team, love the support they get from their supervisors, feel really committed to the ongoing success of the mission and the organization they're part of. And then there's a group that is engaged, moderately engaged, doing what they need to do. People that are basically view the workplace as some place where they go to make a living, a salary that supports what they really care about, which is their communities, their families, their friends, and et cetera, what they do with the life outside of work. And they're committed, but not necessarily heavily committed. And there's more that they could possibly do, but they do what they need to do. But there's also a group that's actively disengaged, where they actually hold back from what they're expected to do and may even at times sabotage the organization because for things that they see are as unjust, unfair, practices the organization that is engaged in that they may consider unethical, but certainly things that have made them angry or sad, upset somehow, then those people are not often, but somewhat regularly looking for ways that they may actually sabotage the organization. That's how mad they are about the organization. Now, some people get mad about the organization and they don't do anything like that. But they are disengaged. They're not looking to see what else can I do to make this work, this organization succeed? What else can I do to help support the mission? Am I willing to stay late to make sure that this particular product or service gets done in a timely way, or that this proposal gets out and because it's really critical to the organization's needs. But you know what? It's the end of the day, and I don't like this organization anymore. I don't even want to be a part of it. It's the end of the day, and if I stayed 15 more minutes, I could make something happen that might make a big difference for the company, but I don't want to anymore. And so they're that kind of upset and not doing things for it. But what do you do if your organization doesn't have very many people with the highly engaged spot? By the way, the averages across multiple organizations across the world, I mean, it's different in each company and each organization, and you may not fit this average. But on average, it's kind of fascinating. Year after year, what Gallup has found is that organizations basically, I was hoping that Rob was going to call in, but I haven't seen him. Okay, yeah, no, he's not going to be able to call in. That's too bad. Okay, I'm going to just send him a note just saying call later if you have time. Okay, so I have done that. Trying to jury rig conversation here, if it's possible later on. Okay, we'll see. So in any case, so the 55 minutes is mine. I've got about 48 of them left. So today we're talking about possibilities, and today I just started to talk about engagement. And I wrote an article called "Engagement is a Feeling," an emotion. I'm either engaged or I'm not engaged in my workplace, or I'm moderately engaged, or I'm highly engaged, or I'm disengaged, right? Those are feeling words. And so given that the emotion roadmap is all about dealing with emotions and feelings, how can I use the emotion roadmap to impact how people feel in the workplace? So let me talk to you a little bit about that, because that's the article I'm hoping to get published soon. Essentially, I look at the feelings in a workplace as every individual is somewhat unique, but there's also some common threads that impact all of us. Let me give you a couple examples. We all get impacted by things outside of work. Everybody has issues. It might be family related, that might be community related, it might be friend related, it might be very personal to you as an individual, but something is impacting you outside of work. A couple of examples. Let's say you have an aging parent and you're the one closest to that parent, and they're beginning to show some signs of an inability to take care of themselves. Now, obviously, there are things like dementia. That's a terrible disease. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that too, because actually there's one of the possibilities is to use the emotion roadmap with caretakers and with individuals who are and families who are experiencing a loved one who is, early signs of Alzheimer's, dementia, problems remembering things, problems getting things done, leaving the stove on, forgetting very important things, leaving the car running, all kinds of really dangerous items that are showing up in their lives as situations that you wonder, I can't leave them alone anymore. And you're the only sibling, or maybe you're an only child, and you're the person they're depending on to help out. And yet you have a full-time work assignment, a job. Maybe you're a high-level executive with tremendous demands on your time. Maybe you're a regular worker who has got a 9-to-5 job, but you have to be there for that 9-to-5. Well, one of the things that organizations do that help people to feel engaged is that they've got their back, if you will. They are supportive. And so that when somebody in the organization is struggling with something at home, like an aging parent, or they're having their own personal issues, mental health issues, physical issues, disease-related issues, monetary issues, all kinds of issues can impact us, right? So something's happening in their lives where they need some time off, time out of the office. And if the workplace is someplace that has a culture where the culture supports all of us caring about one another, and people pitch in and help out and cover that person's desk, and the organization continues to pay them as if they were there. Now, you can't do this forever, of course, but for periods of time, they cover for them. Then isn't that person very likely to want to cover for somebody else when their situation is addressed to some degree, satisfactorily, and somebody else needs some support and some help and some coverage? So when an organization demonstrates that they care about one another, that's a really powerful message and a way to think about how to raise the level of engagement. So that's one issue, just when somebody needs support for something that's happening on the outside. Now, I want to talk generally about the idea of support. In this consortium for research on emotional intelligence that I was just starting to tell you about, we often are talking about issues like this related to organizational emotional intelligence. And what comes up is this idea about empathy. Now, I'm pretty certain everybody listening today has probably heard the word empathy at some point in time and has some idea about what that means. If I asked a person just right outside the door of the WPKN office here in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and I just walked on the street and I said, "Excuse me, can I just ask you a question? I have a talk show on WPKN and I'm doing a survey, and I'd like to know how would you describe the word empathy? Does empathy mean something to you? Does it have a meaning for you? Would you mind taking a moment and just talking to me about what you think about it?" I think the answer, generally speaking, is going to be that empathy is going to be something where you can actually feel what somebody else is feeling. That's emotional empathy. I'm actually feeling your happiness. I'm feeling how calm you are. I'm feeling your anxiety. I'm feeling your sadness. But I'm not just seeing it in you. I'm actually experiencing it by being with you. I'm not sad myself. I'm not anxious myself, but I feel those feelings when I'm with you at this moment because that's what you're feeling. And I'm really sensitive to how other people feel and feel what they feel. So that's emotional empathy. There's something else that what most therapists or counselors or coaches often engage in is intellectual empathy. Intellectual empathy, knowing what is causing someone to feel a certain way. Now, really excellent counselors, therapists, and coaches, sports coaches, music coaches, lifestyle coaches, life coaches, what they often excel at, if they're really good at what they do, is understanding what's going to move you. if you're working for me or I work for you as your coach or you're on my team, how do I get you to be the best version of you? How do I motivate you so you're doing everything you can and you're as fully engaged as possible? How do I do that? How is that possible? Oh, okay. Thank you. So I've just found out that my phone lines are working. So I will take phone calls today, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But let me just conclude on this one subject. I just want to finish with the idea that emotions matter. How people feel matters. But when I say the word empathy, and I explain to you that intellectual empathy is understanding why a person feels the way they do, and a really excellent in-depth knowledge of intellectual empathy is the level of understanding needed to help a person to change behavior. And now you might not do this for really positive reasons. You might be someone who's manipulating somebody. You might really be an effective salesperson who doesn't really care about the person in front of them, but knows how to get them to buy. So there's intellectual empathy. It's not a moral. I'm not talking about morality here. I'm just talking about what it means to have intellectual empathy. And then emotional empathy is when you actually feel what other people feel and are capable of generating feelings in someone else. You're actually capable of generating feelings in someone else. So if you want somebody to feel differently, somehow you're able to generate that inside them by feeling it yourself strongly and powerfully connect to them in a way that moves them towards what you're feeling. Those might sound like magic tricks to some of you if you're not good at this, but those feelings and those abilities exist. Now, the thing that was really interesting one time in a conversation in the consortium, when we were together in the consortium, was this. We actually had a conversation. And Dan Goleman, some of you may know the name. If you know emotional intelligence, chances are you've heard of Dan. Dan's the most well-known author in the field. He's not the one credited with doing with researching in the field, but he's credited with bringing what researchers have done, academics have done, and making it come alive for the rest of us, for everybody who is not necessarily an academic. I understand academic literature because I have graduate degrees. I understand statistical analysis and the kind of vocabulary that psychologists use to talk about their research. But I guess part of the reason I'm involved in this field is because I have an ability to translate what psychologists might be talking and I don't want to call it jargon so much. It's just the language of psychology, if you will, when they're talking to each other about why they believe something to be true in a field, such as there's a new intelligence. That's what they were saying in 1990. Jack Mayer and Peter Salovey were saying in 1990, there's a new intelligence. And other psychologists were saying, what are you talking about? There's no new intelligences. And Peter and Jack said, yeah, actually there is. And they demonstrated this by creating a tool of measurement and demonstrating that we have these abilities and we are different in these abilities and those differences matter. So that's sort of the history of emotional intelligence going back to 1990 in terms of it being talked about in its current form today. But in any case, when we look at this and we talk about empathy, the point I want to make is in a conversation with Dan Goleman in this consortium with about 30 of us in the room, we're talking about what is the definition of empathy. And we talked about intellectual or cognitive empathy, which I've explained, and also emotional empathy, which is the ability to feel what others feel and being able to create those feelings in others. And then Dan said, and then caring about others. And I thought to myself, caring about others? Well, that's not a skill. That's a value choice, it seems to me. And I still believe that to be true. However, what I have come to accept is that if I know what you're feeling and understand why you're feeling that way, and if I know enough about you to understand how to move you to a different, perhaps better feeling for whatever it is you're trying to get done or I'm trying to get done with you, and if I'm able to feel what you feel, those are to me, the real skills around empathy. But if I don't care about how you feel, and if I don't care about you, what does it matter? It only matters if I'm able to manipulate you to get something done that I need done or I want you to do. That's when it matters to me because I don't care about you as an individual, possibly. I mean, those are choices we make, right? But what if you work for someone who does care about you And the literature shows people don't often, when they leave companies, leave the company per se, they're leaving the person they work for. Think about that. They're leaving the person they work for. So I want to talk just a little bit about this idea of what I've done with this article I published, because the work I've been doing in Nebraska on engagement is sort of like the focal point for why this article, and again, I hope I publish it, is so powerful and was so easy for me to write. Because what I wrote about was, folks, all of us have feelings. And if around us, we are trying to create a group of people to feel like a team. You know, sometimes there's a group of people that all work for the same person, but they don't feel like a team. And when you do feel like a team, you feel like you've got each other's back. You feel like the support are in the room, like I was talking about before. We care about each other. That's a distinction that matters. When you have a team and a supervisor, a leader directly that you support, that you report to, that supports you, that matters and has a huge impact on the level of engagement most people feel. Now, again, you might be unique and not care so much about that, but I'm guessing 90+% of any of you listening to this knows what I'm talking about. When you've had somebody that cares about you, you want to do what you can to support them. If they really care about you and they've demonstrated it in times that were meaningful to you, in important consequential moments, they stepped up and did something that, wow, I'm shocked that you did that, but I'm thrilled that you did, and I want to thank you so much for what you did. When you feel like that person has your back, supports you, and has demonstrated that you have seen it and experienced it, don't you want to do whatever you can to help them be successful? And if that's a culture, not just your unit, don't you want the whole company to be successful? So I've been working with a leader in Nebraska who is the owner of a trucking company and warehousing company. And she is someone who is really cares about the people that work for her and is willing to do things that I don't see most people that are at her level as the owner and CEO being willing to do. But she has demonstrated it over several years, and we have begun to use a tool called an emotional culture index, which measures how you feel. And in the moments when we work together, we actually looked at how does she feel and what can we do to demonstrate how people are actually feeling. Is she communicating the way she wants? Is she being supportive in the way that people understand that she cares about them? Are people feeling like this is a great place to come to work? Now, when we first started, we were working with the team she had. There was a change in leadership. She was working at first with her brother, and the brother had taken on some of the tougher tasks in dealing with people that she was seen as someone that come to be supported and cared about. And he was seen as someone that says, look, you don't get to stay unless something that you have in your area of responsibility gets cleaned up. So he was sort of tough in a hard way. And it was important. You have to have somebody that's able to do that. But he decided he wanted to be doing something different with his life. And so I got involved to help them to separate amicably, which happened. I got to like and work with both of them and really enjoyed them both. But I stayed on with her when he left because she then needed to transition and adopt and learn some new abilities or abilities she might have had, but she needed to develop and grow. So I worked with her for a couple of years, and we are now working with this culture index. And we're working to embrace the emotion roadmap by creating groups of people that come together to talk about how the emotion roadmap works. How, if you do have a conflict, if you do have a struggle, if you do have an issue, it's an internal issue, you're trying to make a decision, it's a problem with a colleague or coworker, somebody at home, doesn't matter. How do you use the emotion roadmap to look at how you're feeling and how anyone else is feeling? That's key. How do you do this? Look at the feelings that are in play and ask yourself, if I could make magic happen and change the feelings to what's more ideal, first, what would be ideal to feel for me and for anybody else that's involved in this, that's key to what I'm trying to do? You got to take a moment to stop and think, what would be more, maybe just better, but in the best case scenario, ideal for you and for whoever else you're dealing with. That's key to feel. And then what's the strategy? The emotion roadmap is, how do I get from feeling A, my current feeling that isn't helpful, to be this ideal feeling that sounds like if that could happen, that'd be incredible and be great. How do you do that? And those of you who are regular listeners, that's what you've been listening to for 16 years now. I've been doing the show. So the whole idea is, how do you get the people to feel engaged? Is ask yourself, it's an emotion. If they're not feeling engaged, what are they feeling, and how do I get them engaged? Engaged is the ideal feeling for the workplace. How do I make that happen? So more to come about that. But I do want to tell you that the phones are working, and the number to call if you've got something you want to talk to me about, could be about engagement, because that's what I've been talking about for about 20 some minutes. Or it could be about anything else that you might want to ask me about, so that I can demonstrate with you and help you by using the emotion roadmap to help you deal with what's going on in your particular life at this time where you might want some help. So the number to call is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. So I'll give you a moment and I'll wait. And if you've got something you'd like to talk to me about, give me a call. 203-336-9756. If you've got any thoughts about this, by the way, if you're at a workplace and you do have some feelings relative to engagement, I'm curious, what would it take to make you feel more engaged? Or are you fully engaged? And if you're fully engaged, what's working? I would love to hear from people if you've got some thoughts about that. So I'll give you another moment. 203-336-9756. The curious thing about my radio show is, of course, that people that are working aren't listening because they're working now. So I've got a lot of people that are home for whatever reasons, many retired, I guess, but also people driving by who might have something to say, but they're not sure that they can remember long enough to try and dial it on their cell phones while they're driving. Anyway, again, the number is 203-336-9756. Okay, so let me explain a little bit about the show if you're new to the show. I didn't do that at all, and encourage some phone calls if I can get them. So the show is designed to be a way to share with and teach as many people as possible how to use this emotion roadmap. I mean, my professional life is about, the workplace and not just at work, but schools and universities and governments and military organizations. I've taught this in lots and lots of places, but I'm only one person. I've taught it to a lot of people, so other people are teaching it too. But I thought the radio show is a way for people that don't necessarily have the income or the energy to go to a class, or to, if they just want to just learn about it kind of passively, they can listen to the show. And I want as many people as possible to learn about it, because I think the best thing about the emotion roadmap is what it's helped me and countless numbers of people that I've worked with to achieve is a level of inner peace. Because what creates internal turmoil for people is when their emotions are, in disarray. You're upset, or you're anxious, or you're terrified, or at least fearful. Things that are happening to you sometimes cause you to be somewhat panicked. And it's hard to be rational and problem solve and logical when you're feeling highly emotive. So what can you do to address that? And by the way, certain emotions are really better than other emotions for a particular task. So if you've got something going on where you're going to have to make a presentation, a proposal, or a job interview, or something that's really meaningful, and you're very anxious about it, how do you get from anxious to calm first, and perhaps from calm to highly confident? How do you do that? And so trying to help people learn how to do that kind of movement, create that kind of energy and movement, is what the show's about. And so sometimes when people are calling in, and it's fun for me because I don't know who's going to call. I've had people that are, people from anywhere from somebody who's doesn't have a home to live in for whatever reason, to people living in their cars on occasion have called, and also senior people in organizations, all types of organizations, and everybody in between. So it's not about status. I don't really care who calls. What I care about is when you call, can I help you? And while I'm helping you, the whole concept behind the show is I try to map out how each step in the roadmap, which just starts by saying, tell me your story. You know, you can't tell me a really long story that takes a half an hour because the show's over then. So you got to just be kind of quick and fast with what's going on. And I try to summarize that to make sure that I heard you right. So you know you were heard at least. And then I ask you, okay, so who's involved besides yourself? And how are they feeling? And how are you feeling? Now, if it's just something inside of you, I ask you just you, how are you feeling? And that's where I start the process to make it better by asking, and what would be better to feel, more ideal to feel for you and anybody else that might be involved? That's key. So I walk you through this idea of what are you feeling, what would be ideal to feel, and then I help you get there. I help you get there by looking at what's causing you to feel the way you are, what might help you, what might motivate you to change how you're feeling, and what are some strategies that are possible. And we explore different ideas about how to get you there. And if we land on an idea or two that you can say, you know what, I really think I'm able to do that, and I like this a lot, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to start as soon as I hang up the phone. That's ideal. Okay? That's ideal, where I really feel like I've helped you because you're calling up and you don't know what to do and you're feeling a little bit helpless. And when the phone call ends, you're feeling hopeful. That's the goal of the show. Okay? That's the goal. But I don't get to do that unless people call in. So if you've got something, I'd say to you, yeah, I got some time now. It's 12:30. If I don't get a call, I'll go back to talking about what I was going to do anyway. But it's great to get a call. It's always more interesting. So if you've got something where you're somebody at work or something in your community or something in your home that isn't right, that isn't working the way you want, and you're not sure how to proceed and you feel stuck, I can tell you that most of the time when people are stuck, as smart as they are, as good a problem solver, as good a critical thinker, when they're stuck, it's almost, in my experience at least, almost always something to do with the emotions they're feeling and the emotions they're worried about in other people that are key to what they're trying to get done. And that's what the show's about, trying to help you understand how by focusing on emotions in certain circumstances where you feel stuck, options appear almost like magic. It feels magical sometimes the way we get to things that seem maybe obvious at the end of our conversation, and yet were never available to you until we spent time talking about how the feelings work. So again, the number to call is 203-336-9756. So two things. If you got something you want to talk about, great. Also, if you want to talk about something to do with engagement in the workplace, again, I'd love to hear your thoughts about what I'm talking about and your own experiences. 203-336-9756. The phones, it's possible the phones aren't working. All right. Yeah. It looked like it was working for a minute, but I don't think it's working anymore. Yeah. No, I don't hear anything. Okay. I thought the phones were working for a moment, but I don't think they are now. Okay, so that takes care of why I'm not getting calls is because you can't. You're getting something that says like the line's busy. I tried calling with my cell phone before the show started. Okay, so let me go back to what I was talking about. And thank you. If you did try to call, I just want to thank you for trying to call. And Rob, if you're listening and you wanted to call, you can try calling my cell again. Okay, that's that. Let me talk about then engagement and the way that I've been working with this group in Nebraska. So we spent a lot of time with the management team and the CEO of this trucking and warehousing company, helping this woman who became CEO by herself after her brother left a couple of years ago. And I began working with her. I said, I can serve as sort of a business partner with you and help you with the things that your brother was doing if you want to continue to work with me. And she did. And while I don't have the same skills as her brother did or know the business the way the brother did, I had different skills that would help her to grow into the skills she needed, and she knew the business. So that's been a wonderful ride for both of us. It's been a great journey together. We've gotten close and friendly, and really understand and appreciate each other and each other's families. And she has found that several people that had been mainstays in the organization, with the movement towards being really focused on feelings. One of the feelings, I love this, is one of the feelings that we began talking about, not just like nice and happy and satisfied. It wasn't about creating those kind of feelings by themselves. Of course, you want those feelings, but it's also feelings of accountable, productive, engaged, ethical. You want to create other feelings too that aren't soft at all. In fact, the focal point for a while was, let's make sure everybody here is accountable. It starts with that. And let's make sure everybody here feels supported. And let's make sure everybody here feels productive and engaged. And we began having these conversations and planning accordingly. As a result, certain people chose to leave because they felt like they really weren't going to be able to hold people in their units. These are senior people in our organization accountable. It wasn't comfortable for them. They're gone. Other people have taken their place. And while everybody liked the people that were there and they wish them all well, the people who are here now are willing to do what's necessary to make it real, to make people understand that it's important. If you want to grow and you want to learn in any organization, the way it starts is showing up and being accountable for what's given to you. You know, I've worked internally as in charge of leadership development for some large organizations over the years. I worked for Exxon before it was ExxonMobil a number of years ago. I worked at Harvard Business School for a little while, and then I worked at Hartford Insurance also, always in the leadership development role. And in those experiences, what I found is lots of people want to be promoted. Lots of people want to get raises. Lots of people want to be valued and appreciated. And you know who is valued and appreciated and who does get promoted and gets raises? It's people who are accountable. If you come to me and you ask me, hey, Chuck, I'd like to get a raise. I'd like to be able to move up the ladder. I'd like to be able to get a promotion. You know that job that's open? I'd like to apply for that. And I'm thinking to myself, but you don't do what's already assigned to you. You haven't had something on time in months. And while you're sort of competent, and I'd hate to have to go replace you now, I certainly don't want to promote you. And if I have time and I'm thinking about it, I may want to replace you. Because actually I want somebody in there that can do what the job requires. I want somebody in this job that is responsible for what is given to them. Now, I understand that maybe you can't always do everything on time and in a quality way and for the budget that we might set aside. But I also need you to tell me that as soon as you know that so we can plan accordingly. And right now you're not doing a number of those things. So I'm sorry, until you are accountable, I can't even think about giving you a raise or promotion. Now, that's not a comfortable conversation for most people to have. And yet, how important is it? Because the person working alongside that person on either side of them or in their team or on their team is noticing that they're getting the same, small raises that most companies give out across the board to everybody. And they're not doing what I'm doing. That's how a lot of the others are feeling. So why am I working so hard? Maybe I don't have to do that much either. But a lot of people have really strong internal standards and they don't allow themselves to feel that way and behave that way. And so they do work hard. They are accountable. They are productive. They are engaged. But it's hard to stay engaged when you end up at the end of the year getting a similar performance review and the same paycheck increase as the person who wasn't working so hard. But we changed all that with this organization in Nebraska. We began to look at how do we make sure that we're holding everybody accountable, that we're being as supportive as we possibly can in every meaningful way, so everybody feels ideal about being in this workplace. Now, you're never going to be perfect at this, and you don't even, there's not like a one way to do this, but our approach was we have this emotion culture index. We've been working really hard to make people feel right. We've got the right people on board. There's a lot of people there that really care about being there, and they're very happy being there, and they like coming to work, and they like the people that they work with. Not across the board. I mean, there's always instances where people's chemistry isn't quite great, but things are being worked out when they need to be worked out so that the job gets done. Wouldn't you want to work at a place where you felt like, you know what, it's Monday morning, I can't wait to get back with the people that I enjoy so much because we're all working so hard together to make things happen. I like the mission, I like the people, and my boss, boy, that person, that guy, that woman, that person is just so supportive of all of us. It's great. It's great. Wouldn't you like to feel that way? And so I asked the management team, I said, look, we've got a tool we can use to kind of measure how people are feeling. I mean, you all have your opinions about it, and everybody thinks things are pretty good. And I think they are too. But let's find out what's actually really good and what's, if they have any concerns, what are they? So let's keep striving to reinforce what's good and working and reduce or minimize any resistance to this workplace by lowering anything that might not be working or improving it or fixing it or just lowering the anxiety level or lowering. Anyway, try and find ways to make things work. And so we began working with this idea of creating a tool that would measure how people feel. So a friend of mine in Australia created this tool called the Emotional Culture Index. His name is Ben Palmer, and his organization is Genos. You can look it up in case you're interested. It's called the Emotional Culture Index, and it's put up by Genos, and Genos is located in Australia. They have people in this country working. Got some help from some of them, in fact, when we first started to work with this tool. Anyway, so Ben told me he'd love to see how my tool worked, how my emotion roadmap would work with his Emotional Culture Index. So we're combining those two things in an effort to embrace the organization and drive this emotion roadmap deeper into the organization so more people know how to use it. It's been used at the very senior levels, but we want to create more understanding and create people who are able to teach it to others. By introducing this in small groups, we're going to start working together in groups where people are coming together, that we've thought hard about the groups. There's 2 senior leaders that work directly for the CEO. And so they'll be in separate groups. Myself and the CEO will be in both groups. And then there'll be 5 or 6 other people in each group. And these are people who are key influencers in the organization and other managers at lower levels. And we're going to actually embrace the idea of teaching them how to use the emotion roadmap. And in part, we have some data that we collected from the whole organization about how people currently feel. And the way we collected that data was we looked at, Genos has 10 standardized emotions that they measure. And I looked at them. There were 5 that were unpleasant, like anxious and stressed and overwhelmed, things like that, frustrated. And then there was 5 that were positive, like productive and engaged and appreciated and valued, things like that. And I said, I don't know why we need to measure 10 negative. I mean, if you feel respect is an emotion you want to feel and you're low on that, I don't know that we need something that tells us that you feel disrespected or not respected at all. So I didn't think we needed those. And we discussed it, and we ended up saying, let's pick 8 that we consider very pleasant emotions and 2 that sort of capture the kind of emotions that people might experience when things aren't going well. And we came up with a list that customized. Now, when you customize something like this, you create ownership. And ownership is a big part of engagement. So instead of just telling managers, here's a list, here's a tool, go out there and we're going to measure this and we're just going to use it. And there's no ownership that way. But when you say, here's an idea and here's a tool that can be customized to fit what we want for our organization, let's embrace the idea and work together to create what we want to measure. And that's what we did. And then we got great feedback. So things are good, but they're not perfect. And there's the very nice thing about the tool allows some comments to be written, so you have a deeper dive into why somebody might have rated something on the low end versus the high end. And then we addressed that. And so one of the things that was addressed was an unhelpful comment in terms of things that were unhelpful happening in the organization, is that one of the people in the organization wrote, if I feel that I need to learn something, I will want to be able to seek out my supervisor and ask somebody so I don't, try it and have to make a lot of mistakes before I figure it out. And sometimes the people in charge are just so busy, I got to learn it on my own. And that's not helpful. And, I looked at that and I thought, the person I talked to, the CEO, she travels a lot. She does a tremendous amount of things as a leader outside of the workplace. I mean, she just really is an outstanding leader. And it's grown to be even better. I believe, and she believes too, in the years we've been working together, which is great. And so I said, one of the things I thought about and what I put into this article is, let's assume that as a leader in an organization, I have a great reputation and a great interface typically with the people I work for. They feel like I support them whenever I can. I'm always in their corner. But I travel a lot, or I'm just not available a lot because I'm so busy. Now, what do I do to help out when I see a comment that says, sometimes I feel like the people in charge are so busy, I got to learn things on my own, and that's not helpful. It's not productive. What do you do? So one of the things that I did in the article is I wrote that, hey, there's two ways I could address that. And they're going to be sort of the same idea, but framed very, very differently. So here's one way. I could say, hey, Joe, I'm going to be traveling a bunch, and I need you to step up and be available to people when I'm not here, because people feel like they need to be able to ask somebody when they don't know how to do something. And I'd like you to do that for me. So I'm going to assign that to you, and I'm going to tell people about that. Thanks, Joe. I'll see you later. And just that. And maybe Joe's fine with that. And maybe Joe feels like, why do I have to do the extra work? I'm already working overtime here. And now she wants me, or he wants me to do more. There's no pay for that. There's no appreciation necessarily. There's nothing. It's just, okay, you do it. So again, that's a way of getting it done. A second way of doing the same thing, but framing it differently, is to say, hey, Joe, I need to talk to you a moment. You got a moment? Sure. What do you need? Joe, I'm going to be traveling a lot, and I know people are going to need to ask questions about some of the things that we've introduced, this new software package, this new procedure, this new product, whatever it is that's happening in your company, or whatever people might need that's regularly happening, that people just need information at different times. I'm not going to be there to give it to them. And Joe, I just want you to know, I really respect how much you've grown, what you've learned, how much you know. I really think you know probably more than anybody else here. And I'm wondering if I could, elevate you in everybody's eyes by telling them, look, I trust Joe to answer your questions while I'm gone. So Joe, would it be okay if I had told everyone that I'm going to make you sort of the go-to person when I'm not here? Is that okay with you? Again, I'm doing this because I have so much respect for what you've learned, what you know, and how you interact with the people. Was that okay with you? And does Joe feel like he might have felt by you saying it the other way, where you just say, hey, do this? Or saying how much he's valued and appreciated and knowledgeable and competent. And it's the same thing, right? It's just taking a few moments to think about, how do I want Joe to feel when I tell him this? How do I want Joe to feel when I'm telling this? And that's the way I close the article, just trying to give that insight, because how we frame things. Now, this could be at home. This could be in your community. Anytime you need something for somebody, think about how they're going to feel when you ask them. Think about how you want them to feel when you ask them. Think about how powerful it is when you spend time asking yourself, what are we doing to keep people engaged? How are we helping people to feel engaged here? So that we've got most people, not the 20% that's average, but we got 80%, 60 to 80 to 90% feeling fully engaged. Like, this is a place I really want to come. So I've been doing this work now, again, for several years with this particular company. And the thing that is so interesting to me is how it's actually changing the dynamic of the workplace. And this is a story that this woman that I work with told in a podcast we were on together, talking about this work. And this was not my podcast. This was somebody else's. And they had heard about our work, and I told them about what we're doing. They said, I'd love to have you and the owner of the business on in the podcast. And so one of the stories that got told in the podcast was that, as I said, there's been some turnover initially when people understood that the workplace was changing and there was going to be a lot more accountability and expectations needed to be met and people needed to be accountable. But at the same time, there's also going to be a lot more support and understanding and caring about people. So everything in the mix meant that some people left and new people joined. And yet one person that the woman who was the owner found was terrific worker. She was really glad to have her. She'd been there several months and she was in a key spot. And she came to the woman and said, hey, look, I'm really sorry. My husband has joined another company and he's asking me to come with him because he thinks it'd be great to work together. And there's some things that he and I could do together while we're in this other workplace. And so I'm going to have to leave. And I'm coming to tell you, I'm giving you 2 weeks notice. But I want you to know how much I really have appreciated being here. It's been great working. I'm really going to miss this place. And the woman said, is there anything I can do to change your mind? She said, no, I really feel like I need to do this for my family. Well, she said, I really respect family. And if that's the choice you have to make, then I'm sorry to see you go, but I wish you the best. End of story. So a week goes by and she said, would you like me to announce that you leave? And she said, no, I'll tell people. Okay. So a week goes by and she's not thinking about this anymore other than she's, got to recruit for the position. So she's thinking a little bit about it, but at the same time, she hasn't heard anything yet about the woman telling people she's leaving. And it gets close to the very last day before she's supposed to leave. And meanwhile, the CEO is, she didn't want to post it till she left for some reason, but she worked on the actual outline of what the job's going to be. And she actually was going to ask the person, just, am I missing anything before she left? And they were having a conversation a little bit about, the fact that she was leaving. She had intended to ask her a little bit about the job and again, and wish her well, but wondered why she hadn't said anything yet. And the woman came to her and said, I haven't said anything because I don't want to go. I know I told you I want to leave, but is it possible I could keep the job? And she said, what's changed? She said, I love coming to work here. I've never been in a place where I felt so supported, where everybody's working so hard together. Everybody's working to standard or above. Everybody's trying to get done what needs to get done. And I love coming in to a workplace. And I don't want to give that up. I told my husband, I said, I'm sorry, but I've never had a job like this before. And she said, welcome back. And she didn't have to recruit for the position. So I tell you that because I want you to know what's possible. And just a real quick update on something else that's possible. So that's engagement in the workplace in the article I'm hoping to publish. Secondly, I want to tell you that I've been doing a little bit of work with a person from Yale University that specializes in helping with caretaking for people with dementia. Not just with dementia, but that's a specialty which she has. And she's really focused her attention and spends all kinds of time learning about what's going on and promoting anything that works to help with caretakers who have tremendous emotional, challenges in the work that they do. For the family members who, again, are tremendously challenged on the emotions that that come into play when you see a loved one going through the experiences that dementia brings to the whole family. Challenges among siblings about who does what, who's helping, who's paying, who's doing whatever. And this woman and I got connected. It's a longer story how we got connected, but the point is, she felt it was really important to try and get something published about the emotion roadmap because she felt it could be a technique that could help with elder care, with anyone with disabilities, people that families have to come together to support one family member or more than one. And she said the emotion roadmap is such an easy tool to understand, not necessarily easy to implement, but something that people could learn and could grow and grow with and help and find helpful to deal with all those tremendous emotional challenges that come with either dementia or any kind of disability that's ongoing. And all the caretakers involved and all the family members involved. And so we're hoping to begin a project together to address that. And if there's anybody out there that would like to contribute as a donor to the conversation, to this implementation of this idea, you could email me because, again, it's not money from me. It would be going to the faculty member at Yale to target for grants that she wants to do to help to set this up. And I'm excited about that possibility too. Lots of possibilities about what's happening in the world of emotional intelligence in the areas where I feel like some of the innovations I've helped to create are making a difference. So you can email me at cjwolfe@cjwolfe.com. Again, C for Charles, J for James, WOLFE at cjwolfe.com. Okay, so that's been my show today. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm sorry the phones didn't work. It's I enjoy the show when we have a chance to interact with other people, but I do think that I know I was sharing information I think that will be helpful to you in your lives and the work that you do. And again, the way you talk to somebody, if I can leave you with one thought to kind of end the day with, it's think about what you want to say and how you want to say it and how it's going to make them feel. And if you can make them feel the way that they would want to feel, take a few moments to think that through, and it'll make a difference in your life. And that's what the show's about, folks. So you've been listening to the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. WPKN 89.5 FM, streaming at WPKN.org. And by the way, if you have a Android or Apple phone, download the new app for WPKN. It's great. Okay, thanks a lot. Again, I'm on the air the first and second Wednesdays of each month from 12 noon to 1 p.m. This is Chuck Wolf signing off. And take care, everybody. Have a great month. Bye-bye now.
For over 40 years, SCM
has been the voice of our town,
bringing us together through local programming,
education,
and live broadcasts.
SCM isn't just about television.
It's about empowering our community,
ensuring our voices are heard during government meetings,
and celebrating milestones
like our high school graduations.
But today, SCM faces a challenge.
Our funding structure is based on television subscriptions.
And it's no secret, people have been cutting the cord.
With a shift to internet-only subscriptions,
SCM receives less revenue,
even though all our programming is freely available online.
We need your support.
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 Your donation can make a difference.
It will ensure that SCM remains open,
continues to educate our youth,
and keeps our community informed.
Thanks to SCM, I've been honing my creative skills, helping me work towards my college degree.
SCM is crucial for keeping our community connected.
SCM isn't just here to broadcast local events. They're actually preserving Simsbury's history.
Join us.
Join us in preserving Simsbury's voice.
Simsbury's voice.
Together we can ensure that SCM continues to thrive
for generations to come.
Visit our website
or scan the QR code on your screen to make your donation.
Every contribution
counts.
Thank you for supporting Simsbury Community Media,
where your town,
your schools,
and your government
come together.